leading the charge to make the 2024 Broker Carrier Summit possible, and we are so excited to have their support. In case you haven't heard, TAFS offers much more than freight factoring. It provides a comprehensive support system for trucking companies of all sizes, specializing in fast and efficient invoice factoring with the ability to pay carriers in as little as 1 hour. And TAFS services go well beyond factoring, offering a fuel card that unlocks major fuel discounts, flexible business loans that are designed to cater to the distinct needs of a carrier's operations, a dedicated, responsive client experience team, and much more. Logistics is a 3PL freight brokerage based out of Birmingham. Alabama Black Box Logistics was formed in 2020 by 3 friends, Logan Dyer, William Graves, and Will Hopkins, in a basement office with the goal of bringing transparency around the clock communication and hassle-free customer experience to the table. LoadBase is a logistics software solution that simplifies the process of tracking carriers. Multi-service fuel card, the industry's first fuel card, was created by an over-the-road truck driver in 1978 to offer a safe, simple, and cost-effective way to handle fuel and trucking expenses. Initially, it addressed safety concerns of carrying cash on the road. Today, it combats advanced fraud with best-in-class technical and personal support. Sales-CRM is built for freight broker and agent sales teams. Manage your shipper prospecting and follow-ups. Organize your carriers in the lanes they run. HD Ships is a leading logistics provider specializing in sustainable and tech-driven freight solutions. With hubs in Reno, Phoenix, and London, we deliver comprehensive services, including full truckload, expedited cross-border, and intermodal freight. Leveraging proprietary technology, we offer 24/7 tracking, real-time visibility, and advanced automation to ensure safe, compliant, and efficient transportation. Our commitment to sustainability enables clients to offset emissions through carbon credits, aligning logistics with environmental goals. At HD Ships, we prioritize transparency, reliability, and exceptional customer service, empowering clients to achieve seamless, sustainable logistics solutions worldwide.
All right, episode 35. We got an exciting one today. It's One Dog, One Pod right now. Matt will be joining momentarily. He's in Columbia. Should be joining within the next 5 minutes. Before we get into it, let's give a shout out to our sponsors. Sales-CRM. It's a freight-centric CRM built out. Anything you ever need. Black Box uses it. We love it. TAFS, our banner sponsor, is a factoring company. Whether you're in the market for a new factoring company or you just want to learn, they've got a bunch of good educational things on their website. Everything, Google them. TAFS. Got the shirt on right now. Trio, they do all of our backgrounds, graphics, anything and everything you see from the Two Dogs page is Trio guys. We got multi-fuel services, fuel card, brokers, carriers is a good deal. They've got great technology. They've been around for combined Matt and I age together times two. They've been around for that long. They're sustainable. They're a good company. But let's get into it. So yeah, Matt will be joining the next 5 minutes or so. But we got the mayor today, Nate Johnson. Bring him on the stage. Nate, how are you doing?
Hey, Will, I'm doing well. How about yourself?
I'm doing good, man. I'm ready for this Thanksgiving break.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to a long weekend. It's been a long year. I have not taken off enough time. So a nice 4-day weekend for me, that's precious. So,
Oh, I believe it, man. I know you're busy. Every time I'm
Yeah.
on with anything, I know you got your hands full, a lot of pots. So tell us a little bit about what you got going on with GLCS, everything. Like, what are you doing today?
Sure. Well, today I'm just trying to wrap up for the weekend, but right now, GLCS, we're a managed IT service provider. We basically help companies with their technology, all transportation logistics providers. So we're very niche in the industry. We only work in transportation logistics. We help people select their technology. We help them deploy that technology, and then we'll continue with that support of the technology continuing on. So along with that, we do a lot of integrations. We do process engagements where we streamline the way you do business. We currently work with about 300 companies on a monthly basis, supporting some level of technology in some way.
So you say it's a lot of API, EDI, that kind of integration, or is it just full service tech? What are you guys doing?
Yeah, API, EDI, direct to database. That's some of the integration work that we do. So on the integration side, we do a lot of driver workflow, a lot of document workflow, kind of complex integration. So where other companies are looking to do API to API, we're doing API direct to database. We typically will build on some sort of API set that bolts on to a legacy system. So where other companies struggle to work with those legacy systems, so the older technologies are out there, we typically twist and turn those systems to make them work appropriately. We have a little over 200 companies that are using our systems to integrate just on driver workflow alone. And we have over 100,000 trucks on our platform today just in driver workflow.
Well, slide trucks. Hey, and we got Matt here joining from Columbia. Matt.
Hey, sorry guys. They had some kind of special at this supermarket, so there's a line like all the way out the door. So it's a little longer than I anticipated, but
I figured Pablo Escobar nailed you already, and it was over. So,
oh, he didn't. Check out this view, guys.
Yeah, there you go.
Matt is in Columbia visiting HC Ships. They've got some employees over there, near shore staff. So he's in Columbia right now. Join us outside of the United States.
Yeah, that I envy you, man. It's cold here. It's cold. So
I'm gonna miss the Minnesota logistics event though.
Right,
I just got a message. Yeah, about it.
Yeah, we have quite a few people coming. We have a caricature artist all night. We've got an ugly Christmas sweater contest. We're going to give out some money for that this time. So it should be a fun event. We had another one last week in Chattanooga at F3, which you were supposed to be at F3, weren't you?
I was, yeah. I was in Houston for American Iron and Steel Technology Conference. Got back on Sunday. It was a lot of travel, back-to-back weeks, and I finally said, man, I can't do no more travel.
I don't sympathize with you there, so I just keep going. So you're a lot younger than I am.
The road now for a bit, Nate. Then I know conference season's kind of dying down, so you're back in Minnesota until January.
No, I'm not. Next week I'm here, and next week I'm here. Well, next week we have everybody in town for. Man, that's dark. Next week I have everybody in town for the strategy session, and the following week I think I'm in Chicago for some customer visits. Hopefully that will be the last trip of the year, and then I don't think I travel until the end of January, so that'll be a month at home then. So
you get to spend all the time at home when it's the coldest.
Yeah, that sucks. So and then then it fires off with the conference season. I've got a conference, I think, end of January, and then Manifest, which I think you're going to, right, man? You're still going to? You coming back from Columbia to visit Vegas?
That's the tentative plan, but I have to go back for my sister's wedding. But who knows? I may come right back to Columbia and not make it to Manifest, but we'll see. That's to be determined.
My comment is accurate. Is we may not see Matt back in the U.S. We might not see him come back to Minnesota.
I think you can only spend 180 days a year in Colombia unless I want to go get a 2-year work visa. But I'm allowed to spend 180 days every calendar year, so it starts over in January. But
yeah. Well, fair enough. So I don't blame you one bit. Stay there 180 days. So. We'll see you in the spring.
I'll time it around the golf season in Minnesota. But what have you guys been getting into? We hopped into the leadership topic yet?
No, we dived into what Nate's doing today now. But look, Nate, I don't mean to backtrack, but tell us about how you got into logistics. I know you got a 30-year career. Tell us a little bit about how you got into this industry and your experience to today. You would.
Yeah, so I started in the 90s, and I went to college for law enforcement, decided I didn't want to be a police officer, did not finish school, and decided I'm going to go jump in a truck and see the world. And that was my intention, was to just, drive for a year and figure out what I wanted to do. I did not intend to, I'm coming up on, I think I'm at 28 years now. So I did not intend to make this a career, but it ended up that way. So I drove for Gainey Transportation starting out, went to school in Fordyce, Arkansas to get my Class A. It was a live-in school, spent some time down there. My first load was it was a load of steel case furniture to Manhattan, which was horrible. You don't ever want to send a driver that's 21 years old to Manhattan with a load of furniture, but that's what they did. My second load was a load of batteries, and I went over, ended up having to go over the pass through Colorado, and because I was hauling hazmat and what is that? Eisenhower Pass on I-70. So that was just bad. But
Nate, you're pulling a drive van.
At that point, it was a drive van. Yeah. So, so anyway, I fell in love with the industry, liked driving, did some heavy duty towing for a little while, ended up moving into an office for a bulk carrier in Minnesota, spent a little time there, moved in my early 20s, mid 20s, moved to a drive-in carrier. We're about 40 trucks, ended up in a GM role there shortly after I was there, grew that to about 1,000 drivers and sold that in 2006. And took the money that I made out of that. I wasn't an owner, but I had kind of a nice deal. So I took the money that I had there, started my own fleet, had 100 trucks, 500,000 square foot of warehouse, and, worked that for 3 years. That did not go so well. Made money for 2-3 years and really kind of fell off a cliff in 3 months. So was very aggressive, learned a lot of lessons. Learned a lot about what you don't do in this industry there, but was very successful in a short period of time, but had a few bad things with customer bankruptcies and whatnot. And so 2009 was not a good year for me. I then turned and ran a refrigerated carrier in the Minneapolis area for a little while, for the most part, doubling that company in size. And then in 2011, shifted to technology and ran a services/consulting group at one of the larger, or technically it was for TMW at the time prior to the Trimble acquisition, and during the Trimble acquisition for about 5.5 years. So in 2016, I started GLCS, and GLCS started as a management consultancy. We were doing turnarounds for mid-market trucking and logistics companies. And since then, we've evolved into kind of my previous description of GLCS, and it's kind of all evolved from there. We turned 9 here in June of 2025, so we're 8.5 years old now. So
time flies when you're having fun.
Yeah.
Fun is a variable definition, but we get there. So we get the job done, and it's been a ride. So we every day is new.
What's
Well,
your team up to size-wise now? You have 20, 30 employees?
We're in the 30s.
Nate, I kind of want to ask, like, so if when you're talking about you did really well and then it kind of fell off a cliff, and you talked about some hard lessons you learned, what was that, or your leadership through your 28-year career? What have you learned, and those things that you had happened to you previously, what would you do now to prevent them?
Sure. So, I mean, cash is king. So, that's something I did learn. Are you guys getting feedback from me at all, or no?
Yeah, you're good. It's clear.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. It might be a little delay, but that's probably on our end, not your end.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
So, on my side, cash management is everything. That's something I picked up forever ago. So, with the net 30s, the net 60s, the net 90s of the world, how you manage your cash is big. So, and Matt and I have had lots of conversations on this topic. So, that's something that I'm overly sensitive to in the industry in all ways, shapes, and forms, is how you manage your cash and what your cash strategy is as a company. So you can go broke making money very quickly in this industry. So there's a lot of capital expenditure, especially on the asset side, that you're having to make, and you have to carry a lot of debt to make money. And the margins in the industry are so small that it doesn't take much to hit issues. So starting out, you have to be really sensitive to that. Other things, integrity. I always considered myself pretty strong in that department, but Nate in his 20s versus Nate coming up on 50 is that meaning of integrity is different today than what it was in my mid to late 20s or early 30s. So integrity today is very black and white. So it means exactly the definition of integrity. So we do what we do. Ultimately, I think I have the definition of integrity up here. It's the quality of being honest and having strong moral principles, moral uprightness, and it's the state of being whole and undivided. And there's really no debate to me on that statement. And I mean, Matt knows me well. Will, you kind of know me, but that's the portrayal of my persona, and who you see online is really who I am. So
it's 100% accurate. I learned something new. I thought you were still in your 20s, Nate.
Yeah, right. So this white hair here,
Yeah, I mean, how has that kind of evolved for you? I mean, you mentioned it was kind of different in your 20s and you're into your 40s. You maybe kind of have some examples of that, or maybe some difficult, situations you've had to kind of address as a leader around those topics.
Yeah, I mean, it comes down to how many situations you manage. So, what you go back to being a carrier or a broker. I've kind of filled every chair in every part of the industry. I've paid people, I've paid invoices, I've managed the accounting side, I've sold loads, I've done kind of every piece that there is to do, and engineered every role in the industry. And the one thing you don't want to do is have to manage what you told this person with what you've told this person, or what this customer knows you to be versus what this customer knows you to be. And sometimes, in any sort of way you interact with someone, you have withholding all the information you may not put out. You may not be so forthcoming that you may choose to be selective in the way that you're disseminating all the information, but you're not going to flat out be untruthful. So in those situations, you go back into a career, and I mean, I'll trying to get a driver to do a load, trying to get a carrier to cover a load, and giving them false information. It's the same story in either situation. And am I covering the customer? Am I doing what I think is right? Maybe. Am I giving half truths? Maybe. but you just don't do that. So if we have an issue with a customer today, for example, we're not going to wait for the customer to find out there's an issue. We're going to call the customer and tell them, hey, we have a problem. So, we're going to be at the forefront of that problem, especially if it's major. If that issue is their problem, we're going to tell them it's their problem. We're not going to kind of skirt around the issue. We have no problem calling people's babies ugly. We do that. So, and we expect them to do the same for us, and we'll accept critical feedback as need be. And that's why we have such good partnerships with people.
Yes, I would imagine if and when you're giving that critical feedback, right, they respect it. If when you're telling them how it is, not what they want to hear, as a sustainable relationship for the future. It's not just a lot of times people want to sell you something, they tell you what you want to hear for now. Like looking forward, where are we? How are we? What are we doing? So yeah, I think that's the best way to conduct business. I respect it.
Right. Yeah. You go back. We still say this kind of jokingly. There's a few people that have worked for me here at GLCS for the better part of 30 years and through multiple different entities. And we have some jokes that we'll say every once in a while, which is, hey, just book the load and we're going to figure it out. Yeah. That's obviously a saying that a lot of us use, and it goes on the technology side. Just get the deal and we're going to figure it out. Yeah. Is that the right thing to say? Well, I think it depends on your confidence level on the deal, but we're certainly not going to book something we're not comfortable with and try to figure it out. And I think that comes down to, that next layer when I look at the leadership side, which is, understanding yourself and remaining adaptable. So your self-awareness, your adaptability to the scenarios. And that today is probably more important than anything else. The industry's changed, the employees have changed, the technology has changed, and you have to be able to pivot so fast. And this isn't just a technology discussion. This is everything discussion. Your employees today are not the same that they were 20 or 30 years ago. And in a lot of ways, you look at managing people 20, 30 years ago, and you're not managing those people the same way that you were today. In a lot of ways, you're not managing them at all. If you try to manage them today, they will leave. You're leading them today. You're kind of showing them the way, and they're following you.
Well, let's dive into that, Nate. How do you manage your team, your company, your approach as a CEO? How do you do that?
I don't.
You put people in positions to do it for you that you trust?
No one manages pretty much anyone here. So as strange as that may sound, there's a difference between leadership and management.
I agree.
And so do we have tasks that need to be managed? Absolutely. Do we have things that we need to manage too? Absolutely. But we're not a factory. So, and if you go back in time and when management came about, it was building things. It was trying to create processes to be followed and to be human engineered. And we would manage people to follow those processes. And today, and this is a good and a bad thing, right? So this is somewhat, and it is a debate as well. It's largely a debate, and I don't know if it's the right thing for our country or our well, let's just use our country at the moment. But I think there's lots of countries in this position where people coming out don't want to be managed. They want to be given a list of tasks and not necessarily tasks, but goals. And then they're meant to achieve that goal. So take into account a brokerage. You have a gross margin you need to hit on a daily basis, or a number of loads you need to move, or whatever your target is for the day. You could be managed to those tasks, and maybe if you are a new person in the industry, you're going to have a manager that gets you to that task. But eventually you hit a point in your career that if you have someone managing you to those tasks, you're going to be looking to move to another company. You can handle your own stuff. Yeah, so you're just wanting someone to lead you on a vision. Give me what your vision is, and I'm going to follow you along that way. And so what it really comes down to is you need to build trust with your team and with your partners, and you have to trust your team as well and your partners. So, if you have partnerships with other companies, if you have partnerships with other vendors, whatever the case may be, that the deeper that partnership is, it's going to create value. And the deeper the trust relationship is between the leadership in your organization at whatever level and the employees, the more capability you're going to have. So, and I don't check in with everybody to see where we have our dashboards, we have our KPIs. Everyone's doing what they need to do to be able to pull on that. Everyone understands what the processes that they need to manage, but we don't have necessarily people managing in a traditional fashion of the old. And I don't think a lot of companies, when you really peel back the onion, are doing it that way as much anymore either.
Yeah, no, I think it's interesting. I mean, that's a lot of reason I'm recruiting people that are switching. The reason they're saying they're switching is because of micromanagement or not liking how they're managed. Which kind of, as you're explaining, leadership, may be lacking there. So I think there's definitely a shift, especially with the generation. Will and I, actually, Will's probably in that generation, since I'm a couple years older than Will, but the Generation Z is definitely switching the workforce.
I think that's the first time I've ever heard you say you're a couple years older than someone.
I know. I'm a millennial, but I think, Will, you're Generation Z, aren't you? I'm at the end of the millennial.
1998, so wherever that is.
Jeez, man.
I was born in 94. So when is the
4 years older than me. You act like you're my dad. You're 4 years older.
I could be.
I'm a different generation than you, though. I'm at the very youngest of millennial, and you're at the very oldest, I think, of.
I guess but across any generation, I think that ultimately, if you can connect with people, you can sell a vision, and what motivates them on an individual level, like what do they want out of life, and can you put them in a position to succeed that and get it, or can you not? And if you can't, you're probably gonna lose them to somebody like Matt, HT Ships. They're gonna be an agent. Can you build them into who they want to be, or can you not? And you might agree, you might not, but ultimately, I feel like you sell people on a vision for your company, and they buy in, and that's why you don't have to micromanage them, because they believe in the vision of what you guys are doing.
Right. And there has to be a level of trust. And yeah. I mean, honestly, if you make it 90 days at GLCS, you are going to stay forever. We don't have hardly any turnover. If there is turnover, it's to a position that I can't argue with. We've had some people go to some amazing roles that I can't argue with at all. It's like, here, go, and there's usually tears involved when they're leaving. So, but if there's not a 90-day fit or something like, there's been a couple outliers beyond that where we've really tried to make people fit. And I think we've learned that in 90 days, if there's not a fit, then we need to make that decision. That's been on us, but we've tried with a few others to make them fit, but it's not worked. So those are a few outliers on that are different, but ultimately, it comes down to trust. And then, beyond that, when you take it, and it's really a cross-generational thing, is how well can you communicate? How well are you at listening? Do you have empathy? And then how fast can you make decisions? So, you cannot be a leader and not make decisions. You have to make decisions. And then if it's not you making the decisions, what is your decision tree? Who makes the decisions instead? And that's something I see a lot of organizations. We work with hundreds of companies. I've probably been into 14. I've worked with at least 1,400 trucking companies and or logistics companies in my tenure. And I've walked into well over 2,000 of them. And one of the common issues that I see at them, beyond one of the common issues, there's probably a couple that I could rattle off, is their inability to make a decision.
Yeah.
Sometimes you need to have all the facts, and that's understood, especially on a large capital expenditure or something like that. But sometimes you just have to make a decision, and then you have to make a decision again to fix your decision, and that's okay too. So You don't have to always be right, but you can make another decision to correct your incorrect decision. So,
hey, let me ask you, what are the commonalities that you see between these companies that are successful? What are they doing?
great sales.
Great sales.
Absolutely. You can have the crappiest operation and have the best sales team and still make money.
Yeah.
I'm not advising that. I'm absolutely not advising that. But I have been into disaster of operations that have wonderful sales and they do okay. And so that's, part of my discussion right now with a lot of people out in the industry as I go down market and talk to these smaller guys is don't waste your energy on trying to be efficient when you have 3 trucks. Don't waste your energy. Put your energy into sales. Go find one shipper. Go find one broker that has good freight for you. If it's not good enough, go find a different one. Keep upgrading. It is all about top line revenue. That is 100% all that matters.
Revenue or profit?
Well, ultimately profit, but if you are looking at, so to define it, profit, but if you are looking at it as absolutely profit, Matt, I mean, it really comes down to you have to make money. So I would definitely call it like you understand your costs, so you know what your top line revenue needs to be. So from that aspect, if you understand your costs, you understand the lanes that you need to operate in, you understand the dollar figure that you need to operate at, then maximize that. So, and hit your top line revenue based upon that target. Learn how to operate as efficient as possible with that number in mind. So I mean, a great story there. I used to have a sales guy who he didn't last long, but he ran part of our West Coast sales many years ago, and all of a sudden, I had these boards. This is 20 years ago almost. I had these inefficient boards. They would pop up saying these just don't look right for utilization and otherwise, and we had all kinds of different KPIs that you hardly ever even see today. But all of a sudden, this freight started popping up, and it was short haul freight. We were not a short haul carrier. And it was like Denver to Durango, Colorado, and it paid maybe $600 or whatever the case was. And so we got on the phone and, we start talking to the sales guy, and he's like, well, it, occupies a truck for a day. Why we don't have anything better for them to do. And, the discussion there was, well, first off, that's not what we do. How did a sales guy determine that this was a wise idea? And never in any discussion had we ever discussed doing anything like that whatsoever. Out of Denver, we had probably 5 lanes that we operated out of, and we had maybe 100 and some odd trucks a day that we needed to service. And 2, at that rate, that was a complete and utter disaster for us. So, how many people will just simply, and you're not going to hit that at the small carrier side, but how many people have staff that just will run off and do things, and you don't even identify that until you've been operating that way for a period of time. So, how many times do you have your operation working unprofitably and you're not aware of that? It could be one load a day, but one load a day that you're losing $100 on, that's quite a bit of money. That's $30,000 a year.
365, yeah. As up, so Nate, do you guys mostly work with asset carriers, trucking companies, as opposed to brokerages?
Both. So there are far more asset-based carriers than there are brokerages of size. I mean, there's 1,000 brokerages in the U.S., give or take, that have 10 people or more in them, debatably. And there are many more asset-based carriers than that. And there's a lot of asset-based carriers that have brokerages. So we work with a lot of them. But so we certainly do work with brokerages. We work with a lot of asset-based carriers. So it's about a 75-80% split between pure brokerages and carriers.
Was that a lot of training? I guess didn't really think about it. You have some people that obviously came from the logistics industry. You've had some people, I'm guessing, on your team of 30 that you've had to train up on logistics and on trucking. Is that, or they all came from, they've all came from the industry?
It is a requirement to work here that you come from logistics or freight tech. So you're coming from, almost everyone has come from a carrier for the most part, or they've had a significant tenure from freight technology. So they understand the industry.
I didn't know that. I figured that was the case with 80%, but I figured being in such a niche with IT and stuff that you would have to pull some people that weren't in logistics at all. So I did learn something new there.
We may, as we're doing more IT managed services, we may approach that because we're getting more generalist work. But as of right now, there is no one, we don't need someone that knows the TMS and knows Microsoft products as much anymore. And we're getting to the point where we need somebody to be able to handle Microsoft products almost full. Well, we already are at that point where we have people handling Microsoft products full time, but they also know TMS products and they know imaging solutions. So we don't need those subject matter experts that are completely across the board. So part of our hiring strategy potentially for 2025 is to maybe get more specialized in some of that. So that's possible it'll happen. But if someone comes up and we can hire them and they're coming from a trucking company or a brokerage, we're going to pick them first.
Makes a lot of sense. So did you guys touch at all? I know we're going to talk a little bit about broker transparency. I know Ken and Matt did something.
Yeah.
Ken and Matt were on X, breaking it down today. I haven't got a chance to watch that. Obviously, there's some truck drivers that are very vocal on LinkedIn about this topic, and on Facebook. You've obviously been on the trucking side. You work with brokers. I'd love to get some of your thoughts on the new FMSCA and what they're proposing.
Sure. And I mean, the reality of it is so I kind of come at this from a different point of view. So I was listening to Ken and Matt's session this morning, at least most of it. I was going to talk, but I wasn't in a great position or attempt to talk. And I've listened to this for a year. It was about a year ago that this really started to get traction and start popping. And my initial response to it was, why create the visibility? It creates a great scenario for back solicitation. There's lots of negative reasons behind it. And I mean, it's already there. It's already something that, every broker has a waiver on. And as Leffler, I had a great chance to spend, a good portion of a afternoon with Matt last week at F3, just over coffee and lunch, with a very small group of people. So it was good to chat with him. But on the waiver side, pretty much every broker has a waiver on 49 CFR 371.3, and there's nothing that the FMCSA can do to remove waivers from contracts. The waivers are there. There's nothing that they're going to do. The only thing that can be done to remove them, no matter what we do as an industry, no matter what you do as a carrier, it takes literally an act of Congress to remove the waivers from the contracts that are being put out there. So that has to go to Congress for the waivers to be removed from these contracts. And I've talked with a few folks, and I plan on having a couple other discussions on the carrier side of this, where we look at all the effort behind the visibility side of this, and that effort can be put towards sales. And I would much rather see people selling. I feel like there's too many brokers in market, and I know you guys have a good broker back. And I know, Will, you are a broker, and I'm not anti-broker. So I also feel there's too many carriers in market too. I feel like we have too many trucks on the road. Unfortunately,
even after all the last year.
Yeah, absolutely. So there's still too many.
Yeah.
The other thing that happens when carriers go out of business, those drivers don't just disappear. They just go work for someone else.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not like you're getting just suddenly a capacity reduction.
Yeah.
Those drivers eventually go somewhere else. So, and I know people can track some of this too. So, this market is getting better slowly. It's taking time. But over the last 20 years, we've seen carriers stop selling, small carriers especially, stop selling and start taking the easy route to move more to spot market. We've seen the spot market shift debatably from 10% to 20% of freight moved. Now, I don't have those numbers exactly in front of me. I planned on spending a little bit of time, but we kind of shotgun this thing. But spot market is debatably 10 to 20% of the freight move, somewhere in that range. Back when I was running trucks, it was 10% at best. That means, brokerages and there's nothing wrong with the brokerage side. I actually prefer, regular freight moved on brokerage. If you have a great relationship with a brokerage and you're moving non-spot market freight, more power to you. That's how I think relationships should be working. And Will, I don't know what your insight on it is, but sometimes you'll make more money on the spot market, sometimes you won't. So,
well, yeah, I mean, primarily we built this company off small to medium-sized companies, not contracted freight, spot market freight. We've got a couple of enterprise accounts we do contracted freight with, but ultimately Black Box is small to medium-sized spot freight. They call us today, they said need a truck tomorrow, we get it. It's nothing that we've got planned out. We're not a big player, and that's kind of our niche, man. It's open deck freight. It's small to medium-sized companies, and that's what we do.
So my advice to most of our customers is target 5% spot market or less, and that's really hard to do when you have 10 trucks. You can't do that at 10 trucks, right? If you're at 50% or less, you're doing really well with 10 trucks. And that means you have your outbound covered with a direct. And that's spot market. That's just be clear. You might have outbound covered with a direct broker relationship, and then you're coming back on spot market, right? So, but that means a week ahead of time, Billy the broker, you've booked loads out. You're not having to fight that battle all the time every week. That's how I typically. And I don't want to get it. I don't want to have this be about how to book freight. So I kind of want to keep it about visibility, I suppose. But to that being said, my point is, if these guys that want visibility spend time trying to structure the good business relationship instead of having to go out and worry about what sort of margin they're getting on a lane, and just understand their costs and that they have freight out ahead of time, I think that would benefit it. Additionally, they're just not going to win this. They might win it, but they're still going to have the waivers in place ahead of time.
Exactly.
So,
and like even if and when it does come through, it's kind of a moot point in my opinion. That's what the freight market is, right? You take a load at this price. Okay, Bro got this. It doesn't change anything. You can go back solicit. Like, can you really? It's just kind of what it is, right? Like that's how the market works. It's cyclical. It's brutal. It's up and it's down. But that's what it is. It doesn't change anything.
And what Ken and Matt had said too is something I'd said previously, which is the administration behind this is insane. It'll probably put out of business some smaller brokers if they have to actually put it out there. But once again, the visibility side and the waiver side is not going to go away. But if for some reason it does, I don't think you're really going to want to see what actually happens out of this. So anytime this industry has created better visibility, the carriers usually kind of don't win, and the shippers actually do win. So if you actually look and see the better visibility that happens, the shippers usually will get a better rate or a more consistent rate. And so if all of a sudden all the brokers in the world have to show what rate they're moving it at, and you have one broker moving it at a 40% rip on a particular lane that they're just good at, but then they're doing something else for that same shipper and they're moving it at 0, and they're getting a balance out of that, but that carrier doesn't know that. Then some other broker finds out about it and tells the shipper, hey, I'll do that at 20. So now the shipper wins off of that, but the carrier doesn't make any more money.
Yeah.
So the shipper just starts getting a lower cost of movement. So, that ultimately that's what that visibility, I believe, is going to supply. It's not going to be more money to the carrier.
Yeah, I'd agree.
Well, hopefully you enjoy some winter weather here in Minnesota, Nate, this weekend. And unless there's anything else you want to touch on, I think we've hit on a lot. We enjoyed having you on. I'm sure I'll see you when I'm back in town.
Yeah, absolutely. So when you're back, sometime in the spring, we'll hit around. So
sounds good. We got a text about that driver thing as well. I'm curious your thoughts on this because I've ran into previous truck drivers, Ubers all the time in Minnesota, and obviously in the industry. I'm just curious your thoughts on the driving thing. We're gonna have to have a conversation about that too.
Yeah, absolutely, anytime. So, all right, guys, appreciate it.
Awesome, thanks.
All right.
Thanks. All right, man. Episode 35. Matt Dahl from Columbia.
Yeah, it was a fun one. Do you think am I having a delay at all here in Columbia? Do you think?
You're good. I can hear you clear.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, shout out to our sponsors, Multi-Service Fuel Card. I heard something new about them just the other day when I was listening to something I didn't know. I'm trying to blank on it. If it's obviously we know they've been around since 1978. I think they're maybe the longest or the largest or something historic, like they have something that no other factory has or no other fuel card has. It was pretty cool. I meant to write it down, but I didn't. But anyway, Jessica, Patricia, they're great people, great fuel card. They're great for brokers, great for carriers. Brokers can have a fuel card, with them to give to their carriers. Black Box, where Will works, HD, where I recruit agents. Load Base, Stan, great guy over there, has experience being a dispatcher. They have a tracking service. They put a lot of time in, a lot of energy, great website. Go check out his website, go talk to Stan. If you're looking for a tracking solution, I'd encourage you to at least take a look at Load Base.
100%. Yeah. SalesDash CRM is a freight-centric CRM built out. So you get on a platform like Salesforce, you got to build it out for yourself. Josh the founder, came with the freight background. It's all built out. We used it at Black Box. We love it. We got our banner sponsor, Tafts. I'm wearing a Tafts shirt right now, actually. You can see it. Great factory company. If you are in the market for factory company or you just want to learn more about it, they've got all kinds of educational things on their website. Great guys there. Ryan, Rob. Let's see if we can find it. Yeah, StringRs has got me messed up. Can't even find it. Hold on. Brought to you by Tafts, platinum sponsor. Well, Matt, what are your plans when you come back to the States?
We'll see. Time will be determined somewhere in 2025.
2025. Damn. Okay. We'll be here waiting.
Yeah. Well, I got the same weather as you, so now we're even playing field. Probably better weather here. Well, we'll be back next week. We have a fun show on Thursday, and have a great Thanksgiving.
You as well. Yeah.
All right. See ya.